There's the other 9/10 of your cerebral cortex, the not I part of self, the guardian angel, the part that you might associate as God, watching you watch yourself. And that's where it all happens. And so maybe you, in your consciousness, don't want something to happen, but like Dad said, that's too bad. You know, like I remember, well, yeah, it's like your higher self has a different goal in mind than greed, lust, sloth, you know, jealousy, rage, you know, all the different things that we form as wounds. And it turns out our wounds are our actual blessings from God. I mean, you get burned by your husband and you have a bad relationship or something like that, and then you start to become shy of men or something. This is what separates you from being me. And so that's the place where uniqueness is in terms of your skill sets and what you can do, I can't. And once you recognize that that a bad thing isn't necessarily a bad thing, it is man that polarizes everything. Everything's neutral. Like you look at the fence over there, and that fence, and it's a brown fence. You can see it's brown, but you really can't see the other side of the fence, so you're making an assumption. And in fact, it's black. And so the correct answer, when the good Reverend Jackson says, is that fence black or brown? The correct answer is yes. It's all possibilities because you can't see the other side. That's what makes you human.
So can you change, what I'm getting is that you can change your perspective of who you are, where you are, and continuing reflecting upon yourself.
Absolutely. Placebo. You know, what you think is happening in your health probably today accounts for 60% of what's going on. That's why psychedelic are being touted in medicine right now, because healing on a spiritual level, and it proliferates down into the physical level. How much of that is in belief systems?
Right.
And
well,
then there it is.
Stan Groff.
Yeah.
Stan
so
Groff
that's why
did the LSD research and discovered that, you know, he could cure 99% of the people in the
yeah, that's why I would say
want them to heal.
Yeah, I would say that man is responsible for the thoughts he chooses to entertain, and is why all your saints in history have stressed the importance of meditation and training the mind. Right now, most all of us in our conscious set think that's reality and are running amok. It's no wonder the world's going into a hell in a handbasket. It's, you know, them and us, and there's a high likelihood that we've been invaded by something. Black goo, who knows? I mean, you know, I know that I don't know, and in some manner, there's a high likelihood we may never know, because it doesn't really work like that.
So what is?
Can I ask you a question?
What black goo is? Okay, go ahead, TD. But I do want somewhere in there answer what black goo is, because some people think that's like so important.
You just like the goosey stuff. Listen, I can get real creepy on that. You know, in the woods and what we call molds. In the woods, we have black molds in Oregon that are toxic and into anything, and they're like a conscious type of life form with possible intent.
Right. So that's what the one of the theories was. They raided Grenada because it had the black goo. And then
here's the deal.
England and it got loose.
How did Merlin put it to Arthur? Oh, I didn't see this. No, what he said was, you know, anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory. If it's possible, you can count on it.
Well, do you think that black goo just became a meme for nanotechnology, possibly, in the intergalactic region of plasma gases?
I think that AI would like to see 5G. Yeah, you know, as a life form taking over. When I was a child, I wrote a science fiction story that was kind of like before computers. This was back in 1958. Remember where we were then. And mine was about this massive computer that had the sum of all of man's knowledge. We'll call it the internet today. Okay, and they turned the machine on. This is me writing it at age 15. And then they asked it the big question, is there a God? And the computer didn't even pause. It said, there is now. Now, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And when you realize that silicon-based life forms and Gaia, you look at the soil out here, it's mycorrhiza. It's a hierarchy like your gut of a number of different resonant cavity oscillators setting up a communication system that somehow is outside space-time. So how does that work? And when you talk about an AI, were they here before us, or did man create it? Well, again, the answer is yes.
Are we AI? That's one of the theories, too. We already are AI.
Well, singularity. I can tell you,
we're alive.
I have no interest in going into singularities. And let me tell you the secret here. There is a third-generation D-Wave technology that's now being deployed in Chicago, just like in the movies, to predict crime 28 minutes before it occurs. Now,
right.
Okay, here's the deal. You say a computer can predict what you're going to do before you know how to do it, because you're coming from a place of wounding. And if you changed the wound and used it as an asset, then that is, because see, man doesn't have free will. He has true will. If free will would presume you had full disclosure. You don't.
Right.
And because you don't have free will. You have true will. Now, your purpose, Miss Phelps, Mission Impossible, is to find out why you're supposed to be here, your purpose. And the distinction between intent and purpose is a very fine line of being inflamed, a man on fire. The difference is an AI can absolutely predict what you're going to do 28 minutes before you do, using your concept of wounding. But if you use your wound and you now are here for purpose, that's when Aleister Crowley said, none shall say nay. You're not in conflict with anything, and the AI can't see you. And that's the difference between intent and purpose.
So let's look at that. So we have the wound, and I'm a therapist. I work with thousands of people. My husband works with thousands of people, and we bring people down to their core. My husband trained with Stan Groff. They did LSD psychotherapy. You go down to the core, or whatever they use. You get down to the core, you break it into subpersonality, you identify, you cathartic, you process, reprogram, and do all kinds of technologies. So are you ever free of your wound when you're in this 3D human life? And if so, how do you know you've arrived?
Okay, so that's why the Buddhists wrote the Bordeaux Thedal, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And it talks about the moment of death and what happens to consciousness and the last decision-making choice you're given. And the Kubler-Ross talks about it as the tunnel of light, like Eben Alexander, others that have written on that. And then there is the blue light getting off the wheel. And the tunnel of light seems to sound and sense a lot like the birth canal. It's outside space-time. And when you talk at the moment of death, there is a 5-gram weight loss in the body of all humans.
Right.
What is that? Well, the Egyptians used to call that the Ba, to be distinguished from the Ka. One was immortal and one was mortal, the stag and the unicorn in the forest, soul and spirit within matter. And when you realize that what you're losing is it's on the outside of the body, it's called chi. Hammeroff, others have talked about microtubules with structured water in it. And that's a physical representation of the soul. And that 5 grams is enough of a computer chip using structured water to have all the past and future lives you could imagine. And so going back into what is today called the multiverse. Tomorrow we'll have the polyverse. Who knows? We had the universe, and then we had the reflected universe and the expanding universe, and now we have the laws of physics change every 20 years. What remains true is imagination. We didn't have a 3D printer until Star Trek showed us a replicator.
Right.
Once you see it in your mind's eye, that's what makes it real.
That's what makes you able to reverse engineer it, too. You can get the concept. So I'm going to go back to the wound, though, because you call the wound a critical thing as to...
I'm having trouble hearing you also, by the way.
Okay, the wound. You were talking about the wound, right?
The what?
We're defined by our wound.
Wounds, yes.
Yeah,
your wounds.
That's how we know.
Yeah, wounds are when I came out of the birth canal and somebody hit me and took me off to be fingerprinted, and they chopped my dick off, circumcision. Now, you won't remember that. Well, those are wounds that affect our behavior.
Can you get
a lot differently than a dog in the way it's weaned or whelped in a litter.
Mm-hmm. Can you get past your wounds? Because you said that you said something about AI. I lost the thread. I should have wrote it down. But you said something about AI.
Well, it's all right. We'll talk about AI. If you're wanting to go to the black goo concept of were they here first, I don't know. In fact,
no, I'm talking about the wound.
It may not work like that.
What was that? Well, you said the wound and the AI had a connection. What was the connection between the wound and the AI
works from a wounding point of view because those are algorithms. But when you're doing your true will, theoretically, you're in the flow. That means you're not in conflict with anything. How does it recognize or even see you?
Okay, so
that's and you don't ever get there. You don't ever get there because it's like Simon says, you can go halfway to the door. It's a protocol that you think about the door and you forgot it's all about the journey. It has nothing to do with an end game any more than art is a final product.
So let me keep. I'm sorry. I'm unpacking this because you and TJ download stuff, and you have to unpack it to get what's really going on. Because you're saying very important things. So when you're not in conflict, so when you're neutral, when you're the Buddha, when you're reflective, when you're the
Buddha's a good place. Yeah,
doing the epoche, right? You've reflected back all the way to source in epoche of all of your sub variations and multiverse variations of yourself, and you're seeing your entire self. Then you're saying AI won't see you. So what exactly is AI that we have to be concerned that it does?
It's another kind of life form.
It's all part of source. Everything is.
Well, that's an assumption, and basically, here's where you're going. Here's where you need corrections. Yeah. Before you do anything, you have assumed truths, and then from the assumed truths, you do definitions before you even get into laws and postulates and all the rest of it. And you just made an assumed truth. You said it's the da-da-da-da-da. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. It's not anymore. Which means that with certain mathematics, I can prove the Earth's flat. Is the Earth flat or round? And the correct answer is yes. You chose which way you want to see something predicated on what doors you want to have access to.
So then,
a quantum mechanical or a quantum universe has uncertainty in it. That's Heisenberg, which means the more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. That's the distinction of going from an analog into a digital system or quantum mechanical world. So if you go into a holographic world, the measurements are not made on space and time. They're made on information and resolution of information. By choosing a different way to look at something, all of a sudden, a bunch of doors are open that were not available to you previously.
Right.
Okay, that is where imagination steps in, and it's not to presume a theory of everything is very presumptuous. Doesn't work like that.
The assumed truth that I was examining, the assumed truth that I stated and that we were reacting
to. Yeah. And when you said, everything's connected, but it might not be.
Let me finish my sentence. I'm saying, has everything already been created, which was Einstein, or